Hi, this is Brian from ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to take a look at a slow groove that's played in B minor. Now, I call these no accompaniment pieces. Sometimes you hear them referred to as solo guitar, but this is something that I do often on Active Melody. So if you like this style of lesson and like to learn how to play this stuff, be sure to check out Active Melody because I've got lots of other lessons like this. But basically what I do is I show you how to play with a pick, how to take a little composition where you've got a handful of chords and then you throw in some fill licks and you basically have your own little jam session by yourself. That's the way I think of it. Even though this piece was about a minute long, you could extend this and play this for 5 or 10 minutes or as long as you want. After you watch this lesson, you'll understand how to do that. I'm going to show you how to play the chords, how to do the strum patterns, but then we're going to get into the scales so you understand the context for it. So you're not just memorizing notes, you're really learning how to take a groove like this and make it your own and extend it. That's really what the goal is, and this and all the lessons at Active Melody. So in this video we're going to take a look at part 1, the first half. If you'd like to watch part 2, the second video, as well as have access to the tablature and the on-screen tab viewer, which lets you slow down the playback, you can loop sections and do all of that stuff. You can get that at ActiveMelody.com. Just look for EP155. That's the lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with part 1. Alright, let's talk through tone settings real quick. Now the one thing that you'll notice in the tone that may stand out is you'll hear a little bit of that vibe going on, and I'm using a full tone Deja vibe pedal for that. And I use that from time to time if I'm trying to get a vintage, like a Robin Trower type sound. This pedal is called the MDV3, and it's really nice. It's got a foot control, and you can control how much vibe you're using to get a real classic kind of 70s sound. But that's what I'm using for this. That's what's really coloring the tone. The only other thing, there's a little bit of a slapback delay, which I'm using a Strymon timeline delay for that, but you can use any delay if you want that effect. And then I'm going into the head, which is a PV Classic 20 with a reverb at about 40%. The reason I use that head is because it has a nice little XLR out, which I can run right into the camera, so I get this nice tone. But that's what I'm using for tone. So let's get into the lesson now. So this is in B minor, and I'm playing a B minor 7. Let's first start with that particular chord. A B minor 7 is the same as a B minor chord. You just take your pinky away if you're playing it up in this position. So this is the 7th fret, and I'm going to bar all 6 strings. And to play the B minor 7, all we do is we put one finger down here on the 9th fret, 5th string, and play all 6 strings. It's a B minor 7. It's a great sounding chord, kind of jazzy, but it works really well in a blues like this as well. So now that we have the chord, let's get into the strum pattern. Let's get that strum groove going first, and then we'll back it up to all the specific little licks and where those licks come from. So to get this groove going, that's what we're going to learn first. The first thing I want you to look at is my right hand. Notice that once I start it, it stays in motion, just like this. It never stops. And so that's important because anytime you're playing rhythm, especially with a groove like this, keeping your hand in motion is key. And I stress that in a lot of videos, but I can't stress it enough. Okay, so the first note that's played is played with a downstroke, and it's on the low 6th string. Now we're going to keep this chord, so I'm not going to be calling out what the left hand is doing. We've already covered that. Now we're going to get into the upstrokes and the downstrokes. So downstroke hitting that 6th string, and then we're going to do another downstroke and play the entire chord. Now the way that I tabbed this out, for those of you looking at the tab, I did not all 6 strings. I think I only did the middle 4. And that's when I analyze what I do when I play it. I don't necessarily have to try and get all 6. That's not really the point. As long as you're making the chord here, you can just kind of hit it. If you happen to hit 5 strings, that's okay. If you hit 4, that's okay. But as long as you got your chord down here with your left hand, the right hand becomes a percussive thing. And it doesn't matter the specifics as much for something like that. Hope that makes sense. So that's the first thing. Now notice this. Notice how quickly it truncates. And that's by releasing the tension here on my left hand. So I keep the chord shape, but then my hand comes off the fretboard, staying in place so that I can make the chord again. So just practice that until you can get that kind of sound, that little pop. Now, after we do the downstroke, we're going to do two muted strums. We're going to go mute, mute. I'm just going to call it out like that. So we got a bass note, bass, strum, and then mute, mute. Bass, strum, mute, mute. Try that. Bass, strum, mute, mute. Okay? Once you get that down, then we're going to do an upstroke, a mute, and another upstroke. So putting it all together, it sounds like this. Bass, strum, mute, mute, up, mute, up. Bass, strum, mute, mute, up, mute, up. Let me do it without saying it. Okay, and you can start to feel it now. Now when I did that last upstroke, to conclude the groove, we're going to do a down and an up. These are not muted, but we're going to just do a downstroke and an upstroke over that same chord. And then do it again. Start to feel it now? So that's the groove. And you can play that whatever tempo you want. If you want it to be very fast, you can do that. The other nice thing about this is, since we're playing it, I just happened to choose B minor. You could do this in any key. This is all, since it's all fretted here, it's behind the fret. If you wanted to do this in A minor 7, just move everything down a few frets. So this gives you a groove that you can play in any key. So if you wanted to write a song to this, for example, using this kind of thing, you can match your vocal key and work with it from there. Okay, now that we got the groove down, let's back up and let's start from the very beginning. So what I did was I started by playing a little lead part, a little intro. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be in the minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1, for the key of B. And the thing we have to look for always is our root fret. Our root fret is the fret that we bar when we're playing a bar chord like this B minor chord. So your bar chord would be here on the 7th fret. So your root, that's your root fret. So pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale is there. And if you don't know what I mean when I say that, check out the blues lead course at activemelody.com. I go through all the patterns. That's available to premium members. Okay, so now that we've established that, let's look at some of the licks. So this first little intro, that's right out of pattern 1. And we're going to go from the 7th fret, we're going to start on the 5th string here, 7th fret, slide up to the 9th fret, and we're just going to bounce back and forth between the 7th fret and the 9th fret. It's nice, a little box here. 7th fret, 4th string, 9th fret, 4th string, and then that last note is on the 7th fret, 3rd string, but the way we're going to play it is we're going to play it within the bar. So it looks like this. And you see what I've done is I've just set up the bar now so that I can come over here and grab the chord. And I can let that note ring out. So it sounds like this. And we're right into that groove that we just learned. And so hopefully that makes sense. You see what I'm doing. I'm playing right out of the minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1, which if a light bulb goes off for some of you, it should be that, oh, so I could play any of the notes in that minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1, as an intro and it would work. So if a light bulb goes off for any of you, it should be that you could play whatever you want in that minor pentatonic scale for the intro. So it could be, or you could go, or whatever you wanted to do. And that's what I would encourage you to do, is once you get the groove down and you understand what I played, look at what you can do. Like what kind of little intro might you work into something like that, and it starts becoming very fun very quickly when you realize that you have all this control now over what you're doing. So all right, so after I make the bar, play the note in the bar, then I come down and hit the low 6th string to establish that bass note. And then my ring finger falls right into place so that I'm making the B minor 7 chord, and now we're getting into the groove, which we just learned. Now the next thing I do after that is I play that little lick there, which is, again, minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. What I'm doing for that is I'm coming up here to the 10th fret 2nd string, and then I do a slide from the 10th fret 3rd string down to the 9th fret. And what that note is, some of you will say, hey, that's not in the minor pentatonic scale. You're right, but it is in the blues scale. The blues scale is just the minor pentatonic scale with this extra note here. They call that the blue note. And that's what I'm doing. I'm starting on that note, and I'm sliding down to the 9th fret, 7th fret, and then there's the 9th fret on the 4th string, so it goes. And then watch this. I put the bar down again, taking advantage of that, and hit the 2nd string, which is within that chord, so that it can kind of ring out, and it sounds like you have 2 guitars going on. So in essence, what we've done is, if you think of, if there were 2 guitar players, one was playing, doing the groove, and the other guitar player would go 2, 3, 4, 1, playing a little lead part. And that's what you've done. You're just combining those two, taking advantage of any of the notes that fit within that bar. That's kind of how I think of it. Okay. Now, the groove is the same, but we truncate it here the second time. So I play the bass note, strum, mute, mute, strum, mute, strum. And then we end it right there so that we can go and play this little lick there. Or series of licks, I should say. Now, what I've done for that is I'm walking right down basically this little box between the 9th fret and the 7th fret in pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. This first lick is a really nice one because you're doing a double stop thing. A double stop means you're playing 2 strings at once. So we're starting it that way. That's on barring the first 3 strings here on the 7th fret, playing strings 2 and 3. And as soon as I play them, I hammer onto the 9th fret 3rd string. Isn't that cool sounding? Ring finger comes down to the 9th fret 4th string, and then watch my little bar here. It scoots up one more so that now I can play strings 4 and 3, and I can do exactly what I did, but now I'm playing 4 and 3 here, and I'm hammering on to the 9th fret 4th string. So it sounds like this. And now we're going to scoot it up one more so that we can grab or play strings 4 and 5, and then do a hammer on again, this time on the 9th fret 5th string. So you can see I'm just doing this same little pattern. I'm just walking it down each set of strings. That's a great lick. If you don't learn anything else in this entire lesson, take that lick with you and try using it in a blues jam. It's very versatile. It's something that works over just about anything. And you can take little parts of that and little hammer-ons. Just, you don't have to do that exact walk down every time, but take that thing and just dissect it and look at what's going on, and it starts to really make sense because it's so visual. It's just that little box there. Okay, let's back it up. So we have Does that sound good? Same little groove, same strum pattern after I play the... We're back to the bass note. And then it ends there, and then I went... Played a little bass note. Now what I did was, if pattern 1 is here, I came down, there's a little extension, and I covered this in the blues lead course, this little extended part. You have another little box down here. So it starts here on the 5th fret 6th string, and I use my ring finger, and I slide up to the 7th fret on the 6th string. And then we're going to do that same little box area, but now we're going to be on the 5th string. There's the 5th fret 5th string, 7th fret 5th string. So we have... Now we're going to reiterate this note by hammering on between the 5th fret and the 7th fret. So we have back to the 5th fret 5th string, 5th fret 6th string. Then I took my fingers off the fretboard and played that open 6th string for that note. And the reason I did that is I just thought that made it easier to hit that open note so that you have nothing on the fretboard, so that you can get right back in position for your B minor 7 chord. Now, if you're doing this in a different key and you didn't want to take your hand off the fretboard like that, if you didn't want to play that open 6th string because maybe it doesn't fit with the key you're in, just take it out. Just go something like that, or you could do a little walk up there, a little passing note. There's lots of options for that. So just play around with it. Just in these 4 little notes here, see what you can come up with. I thought about doing something like that. You know, kind of more of a funky blues kind of thing. Okay, so that's part 1, at least. Yes, those are all the parts. Let me back up. We'll start from the very beginning, and I'm going to do this slowly. Now, what happens at this point is we go into part 2, and I'm going to cover that in the next video. Alright, so that's really all we have for part 1. The one other thing I wanted to mention is to set a metronome or something. You know, obviously this doesn't have a jam track or anything for you to practice, so you're going to have to be kind of reliant on your own sense of timing. But I would recommend setting a metronome and playing along with that. Now, I did this at about 90 beats per minute if you wanted to do it exactly the tempo that I did it. But the reason I mention that is your natural tendency is going to be to speed it up. If you play this and don't use a metronome, as you get more comfortable with it, it'll get faster and faster. And that when you loop it back, it's going to be played at a much different tempo than the tempo that you start with. So just pay attention to that. Pay attention to your timing and your tempo.